Hello everyone, welcome to Yunus English. I brought an article from The Guardian, published on May 9. Friday briefing. A big, beautiful trade deal or mugging from the school bully. In today's newsletter, there's comfort for the UK steel and auto industries, but still tariffs to pay as the result of Starmer's charm offensive on Trump are revealed. Good morning. The invitation to Buckingham Palace has paid off, and the UK has become the first country to get a coveted trade deal with the United States since Donald Trump became president and plunged the global economy into chaos. After Rachel Leaves came home empty-handed from her trip to Washington, D.C. last month, there had been fears that the UK would languish at the back of the line of countries queuing up before Trump, and to use the president's words, kissing my ass, to try to secure concession from the sweeping tariffs he inflicted on the world shortly after taking office. In the end, the efforts of the UK's negotiating team reaped results, and at an exuberant press conference yesterday, Donald Trump and Keir Starmer congratulate each other on the terrific and historic deal that they had struck in record time. Under the deal, the US will remove the 25% tariff on UK steel and aluminum and cut the rates on most car exports from 27.5% to 10%. In return, the UK government will remove the tariff on ethanol for US goods and agree upon reciprocal market access for beef products. But underneath all the celebratory rhetoric, how significant is this deal? And what will be the impact on the UK economy? I talked to the Guardian's economic editor, Heather Stewart, to dig into the details. In depth, will the UK-US trade deal put Britain on the road to prosperity? Since Brexit, striking a trade deal with the US has been considered the holy grail of UK trade policy. The US, a vital trading partner for the UK, with imports from and exports to the world's largest economy, accounting for over 300 pounds, almost 1 pound in every 6 pounds of all UK trade around the world. Keir Starmer is framing this deal as a huge victory for both his government and the UK. Supporters will say the deal is an exoneration of his approach to dealing with Donald Trump, which has seen Starmer heap praise on Trump's statesmanship and hands out an invite to meet the king live on TV and lobby for Trump's Scottish golf course to be made the host of the Open Golf Championship. Yet, with the global economy faltering and the impact of the Trump tariffs starting to sink in, the question remains whether this deal will change much for the UK economic prospects in the long term. What is actually in the deal? Trump is framing this deal a vindication of his economic policies, and the UK will not get any relief from the 10% baseline tariffs imposed on all goods exported to the US. However, the US will remove tariffs on British steel and aluminum exports, one of the UK's key aims while negotiating. It's also good news for the Britain's beleaguered automotive industry, which will see the rate on most cars exported to the US slashed from 27.5% to 10%. In response, share price of the Aston Martin Laguna and jet engine maker Rolls-Royce have already risen. Although the US government is heralding the UK agreement to offer reciprocal market access on beef as a big win for US farmers, none of the government's red lines on conceding to lowering food standards on imports were crossed. Even though the UK is opening market access for US beef products, the government insists it won't have to accept meat that fall below domestic welfare or safety standards. Heather says it is also notable what is missing from the deal. It will have come as a surprise that Britain didn't budge on its digital service tax despite US pressure to do so. It is also not clear from the deal whether the UK will be given preferential treatment in future tariffs on the film industry or pharmaceuticals. How full and comprehensive is the deal really? Heather says that despite of all the pomp and bluster and Trump's claim that this is a full and comprehensive deal, there isn't actually a huge amount in there. The main point is that the UK has managed to carve out some relief for the steel and car industries and avoid any major concessions that would cause a serious political headache. And the US has been allowed to claim victory in its America First tariffs war. We can expect the government to say that they managed to achieve what successive conservative prime ministers failed to do in striking a deal, but that's a bit disingenuous because they were after comprehensive trade agreements, and this is really a limited trade deal designed to mitigate the damage of the Trump's tariffs, she says. There is a big difference between trade deals and trade agreements. Trade deals are usually short-term and limited, while trade agreements are broad-based and long-term. As Andrew Sparrow, the Guardian's live blog editor, wrote, a big India-style agreement. This is not. Is this a genuine win for the UK? Coming hot on the heels of the trade deal with India announced last week and ahead of EU-UK summit on the 19th May, the government says the deal with the US shows it is delivering and building a momentum toward its promise on economic growth. However, for Heather, the fact that we were the first across the line is less to do with our crack negotiating skills and more to do with the fact that Trump's main complaint over trading terms lies elsewhere. In Trump's mind, if you have a trade deficit, you are being cheated in some way, and so he is fixated on the EU and China, which he feels are somehow pulling a fast one on the US, she says. We don't have this deficit, largely because we have hollowed out our domestic manufacturing industry, so ours would be one of the simpler trade deals to agree, because there are likely to have been less sticking points. Heather says that although the UK actually didn't give away that much, it is still in a worse position than it was just a few months ago in terms of trading arrangements with one of our most important partners. It is, she says, less a blueprint for encouraging prosperous trading arrangements and more attempts to roll back some of the damage done by Trump's America First economic policies. I think you can frame this not so much as a big win, but as a big relief, especially for those sectors who were really on the ropes, such as car manufacturing, says Heather. It's significant that Starmer held his press conference surrounded by car workers because he wants to say, we did this to protect jobs and protect our industry. It's also a win that they haven't given away anything that will compromise their dealing with the EU. But I think in general, this deal is like the school bully giving some, but not all of your lunch money back. What is in it for the US? It's also worth noting that despite Trump and his entourage bragging that today proved him to be single-handedly reworking the dynamics of global trade. The US needs this deal to happen almost as much as the UK. Trump's pitch to the American public is that he is a master deal maker and reliable custodian of the US economy, and his polling, both personally and in terms of economic policies, is tanking. The White House needs an off-ramp from the Trump's global tariff fallout, and this deal could provide just that. It will signal to the other trading partners that the administration is stepping away from a war footing toward a desire to forge more normal bilateral trade relationships. The markets will respond positively to this deal because what Trump has shown is that he is willing to negotiate if you give him something and accept the 10% tariffs, says Heather. It's a roadmap for other countries to follow. What is the potential impact of the deal on the UK economy? Heather says the deal itself is unlikely to solve Starmer government's economic woes. The Trump's entire tariff policy, including a projected slowdown in global economic growth, is likely to shave just 0.3% of GDP in 3 years' time. It's very important to have this piece of good news to take to the public. And now that the Bank of England has cut interest rates, they are going to have positive headlines about people's mortgage going down and this deal being done, and that will help boost consumer and business confidence, says Heather. But in terms of the broader economic impact, this deal is really quite small. Heather says that deal or no deal, Reserves is facing the damaging prospect of breaking her own fiscal promises and having to decide whether to raise taxes or cut public spending to try to make up the shortfall. With last week's dire local election results for her government, some of her economic decisions are also proving hugely unpopular. In other words, the chancellor has big problems. Then his limited trade deal can fix. Alright, thank you so much for watching my video. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.